Welcome to FFRF's Ask an Atheist. I'm Liz Cavell, an attorney at FFRF, and joining me today are attorneys Sam Grover and Ryan Jane. Well, the holiday season is here, and in case you haven't noticed, holiday decorations are everywhere. And at this time of year, we receive tons of reports of nativity scenes on government property. So today we're going to talk about FFRF holiday displays, when we put them up and why, and we're going to talk about the all too common vandalism of our FFRF holiday displays, which happens every year. So if you have questions, as always, please comment below or email askanatheist@ffrf.org. So first, we're going to take a look at how FFRF celebrates the holidays here at the Wisconsin State Capitol.
It's December in Wisconsin, which means it's time for the holiday tree in the state capitol. For many years, religious groups have been allowed to put up seasonal displays in the rotunda. In that same spirit, the Freedom from Religion Foundation exercises their right to free expression during this season of the winter solstice. Annie Laurie Gaylor is the group's co-president.
And this is the 22nd year that the Freedom from Religion Foundation has put up our sign saying there are no gods, there's only the natural world. This was composed as an equal time protest of religion in the state capitol here in Wisconsin. And it says, at the season of the winter solstice may reason prevail. There are no gods, no devils, no angels, no heaven or hell. There is only our natural world. Religion is but myth and superstition that hardens hearts and enslaves minds. There's been a lot of problems with it over the years where it's been stolen or had acid thrown on it, but in recent years it's not been molested. And then we recently joined that sign with our Bill of Rights nativity. And this is a very charming and whimsical homage to the Bill of Rights, which was adopted on December 15th, 1791. So it's the anniversary of the Bill of Rights in the month of December. And we think it's appropriate to honor the Bill of Rights in December, whereas it's not appropriate to have religion at the seat of our state government. And this sign depicts some of the founding fathers and the Statue of Liberty honoring the Bill of Rights, which is depicted in a crèche. And this has been somewhat controversial. It was at the state capitol in Texas, and Governor Abbott censored it, even though he had a permit. And we just won a lawsuit where a federal judge said he may not censor it, but Governor Abbott has appealed that. We have this in several other state capitals. It's on courthouse lawns. And we make this Bill of Rights nativity available to secular activists who want to counter religion at so-called public forums on government property in the month of December. We don't think religion or irreligion belongs in governmental property. It's divisive. But if there's going to be religion on government property, there has to be room at the inn for dissenting points of view.
So, first I'm just going to address, we got a live question in the comments asking what's the deal with our holiday wardrobe. We are, yes, in the spirit, the subversive spirit of the War on Christmas, we are wearing our ugly holiday best. In case you're wondering, these are the weeping angels from Doctor Who, and down here it says, "Don't blink." So just so you know, these are not real angels, they're weeping angels. So back on topic, we're talking about holiday displays. What is the deal with nativity displays on public property? Like you saw in the video, when and why does FFRF put up their own displays on government property? Well, when you see a nativity scene at a public park or on your city or county government lawn, is that legal? And do you have the right to put up your own secular display, like FFRF did in the video in the Capitol Rotunda? So first, I'm just going to kind of chat about the basic breakdown of when a nativity scene on public property is legal and when it's not. So, believe it or not, the U.S. Supreme Court has held that a nativity scene on government property as part of a government display can be legal if it's part of a broader, more secular holiday display that includes many elements that are more of a cultural recognition of the holiday season and the secular elements of the holiday season, like a tree and Santa and other religions or denominations' holidays and things like that. So that's a situation where the government itself is saying, this is our display, we maintain it, we put it up, there's a nativity in it, but overall it's what would be approved by the courts because it has an overall effect of celebrating the holiday season in a broader, more cultural or secular way, says the U.S. Supreme Court. Many government entities, cities and counties, instead of even getting involved or maintaining their own display, what they do is they open up public property. Oftentimes it's a public park, but it could also be, you know, the public lawn, park property in front of City Hall or whatever. They open up a public forum, a limited public forum, which basically means that private groups or private individuals can sponsor their own displays, and the government can sort of limit what types of displays there can be. And, you know, it can be limited to a topic. For example, it can just be limited to the season, the month of December, or, you know, it has to be seasonal related displays. They can limit whether or not things can be a certain height, whether or not they can be affixed to things or posted in the ground. But they can't discriminate against displays based on their viewpoint. So they can say seasonal displays are allowed in this park, but they can't say we won't accept an atheist display, but we will accept a nativity display. So in situations where the government has decided to open up a public forum, and a private group is sponsoring a nativity display, that's a situation where FFRF wants to get involved, like the Wisconsin State Capitol Rotunda. We want to get involved because we want to balance that religious viewpoint. You know, religion at the seat of government should be balanced by other viewpoints. And when it's a public forum, FFRF is going to get in there and put up our own display. If we have an activist on the ground, if it's not in Wisconsin, if we have an activist on the ground who's willing to put up the display for us and coordinate the details. So
I just wanted to interject real quick, Liz, and say that that's exactly what happens to us with the Texas Capitol. There was a nativity scene in 2014. So in 2015, along with that nativity scene, we wanted to put up our own display. We put in the application, just like any other group, put up our Bill of Rights nativity, and that's when Governor Abbott took down our display and censored us. So that's what Annie Laurie was talking about in the clip we just watched, was we just got a recent court victory declaring that censorship of FFRF's display illegal.
Right, right. And that's a perfect example of where the government, the state of Texas in that case, created a public forum in their capital for speech, you know, constructed a permitting process for getting private displays up in that forum. And then when we took advantage of the permitting process, got a permit, put up our display, the governor didn't like our viewpoint and tried to censor us, and that's not legal. So we also get to sort of test the validity of the forum by putting our, you know, unpopular viewpoint into the mix, and we get to counterbalance, you know, the overwhelming image of religiosity that a nativity scene places at the seat of government or on other government property. So Ryan is going to talk to us a little bit about some of the displays we've put up over the years in different places, or the past few years, and that we have up this season.
Yeah, so we have displays all over the country. The first one that we're going to show is the one that you saw a clip of in the beginning. So it's right down the street from us in the Wisconsin State Capitol building. So there you can see Sam and Andrew and Annie Laurie setting that up. And again, this is a public forum, so the government is saying that this is private speech. Even though it's on government property, this is not government speech. So that's the first one in our hometown. And then I'm just going to showcase some of the other ones. This is Grundy County, Illinois. And the next one is in Daly Plaza, Illinois, near in Chicago. The Illinois State Capitol in Springfield is one where we've had for several years, has been up. And it's a little bit hard to see in that picture, but on the left of the graphic there, you could see that that is the message that is on there. So again, that's been in the Illinois State Capitol for several years. And then Cleveland, Ohio, we have a lot of active members there. So there they are showing off our new Bill of Rights nativity. And then we have a shot of the balance. So there's our nativity and the traditional nativity. So trying to show both viewpoints. Next is Warren, Michigan. So this is another fun one, Keep Saturn and Saturnalia. I think a lot of people don't even get what we're going for there, but I think it's hilarious. That's maybe my favorite banner of what we have. And then finally, that's me. So the town where I'm living had a large nativity, and there's a bit of history with it. We complained about it. So here's me with it. In the next picture, you can see the balance. So this giant nativity on the right, you can see, is large, it's standalone. It's not like what Liz was describing where it's, there's a larger secular display. This is just a nativity, and that is not permissible as government speech. So FFRF complained about it, and the city of Broadhead actually put a little sign in there that you couldn't read what it said in the photo, but it's a kind of bizarre sign saying the city of Broadhead is open to all religious beliefs and affiliations, signed like the Broadhead City Council, and then they put the sign in the nativity. So I think that actually made it worse. It made it look like they really endorsed the nativity, but they told us, no, this is a private nativity, and if you want to put up a display, you can. So trying to lead by example, that is exactly what I did. So that is up in the city of Broadhead, Wisconsin. Now, to go to the next set, we unfortunately oftentimes have to deal with vandalism. We have our displays are unpopular viewpoints, and so some people are willing to break the law to try to silence us. So this first one is in Arlington Heights, Illinois. This is what it looked like before. So we have that A, which lights up at night, and the sign. And so this was the sign was bent all out of shape. But we were able to quickly replace that one. The next one is in Boca Raton, Florida. So this is a banner that we put up there that, again, has a winter solstice message, picture of our Bill of Rights and nativity, and here's what someone did to that. So that one also we were able to quickly replace. Next one is in Shelton, Connecticut. And so this one, someone just took a knife to it, slashed it, and this one is actually the result of a federal lawsuit. We had to sue the city of Shelton just to get the right to put this banner up because they had a religious display that they said was not open to anyone else putting it up. They said they thought our display would be offensive, and we had to sue them over it, and finally we prevailed and were able to put it up. And this last one, this is in Franklin County, Illinois, which was also that's an example of a forum that gets way out of control, where it turns into a big circus. You have all sorts of displays all over the place, but ours, being unpopular, got vandalized. Now we do have a solution, several solutions really, to try to combat this, and one of them is what we call our resurrection pledge, which Sam is going to talk about.
Yeah. So we've been trying to deal with the vandalism and the theft of our displays in a few different ways. And 3 years ago, we finally came up with the idea for a resurrection pledge campaign. The idea that whenever one of our holiday displays is vandalism or stolen, our members or anyone from the community can make a pledge to FFRF. So you can actually find on our website where you can make a pledge, a small dollar amount, and then every time one of our holiday displays is vandalized or destroyed, you can fulfill that pledge to help us resurrect that display. And there are a couple reasons why we do this. First off, it's a way to deter future vandalism and theft. Essentially, what we're telling dissenters in the community is that if you mess with our display, you are effectively making a donation to the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which is a nice way to prevent people from messing with our displays, which are permissible in that forum, and it's important that the community hears dissenting viewpoints. And then, of course, the second benefit to the Resurrection Pledge campaign is that it gives FFRF a little bit of money to compensate for these very expensive displays that we put up. Our banners and our Bill of Rights nativities, they're not cheap, and every little bit helps. it's a great way for us to keep this going, to keep ensuring that when people contact us about a nativity in their local community, we can say, yeah, here's a way for you to speak and to give an atheist perspective.
Right, and if you vandalize, destroy, or steal our banner or our display, it's not going away. Another one is coming up in its place, and it's helpful if we have the resources available to, replace stolen and vandalized banners and displays. Because, like I said, this happens pretty much every year, unfortunately. So our Resurrection Pledge helps us keep our displays on public property where there's going to be religious displays on public property, not allowing us to be silenced or censored by the mob. So we're going to take a few questions on this topic. So I'm looking at some comments and questions, and I'll just toss them out there for you guys, and we'll discuss. Let's see. Here's one that says, what about live nativity shows on government property? If it's just an event and only promoted by the local church, is that still constitutional? So this is a good question and kind of an interesting one that has come up a few times. I've actually gotten 2 reports of this year that I've written to 2 different cities about, which is there's an event, it's sort of promoted as an event. It's not a standing display, it's kind of a one-time show, and it's a live nativity, or living nativity, which if you haven't seen one of these things, it's basically just a bunch of people and sometimes live barnyard animals playing the roles of all the nativity participants. Oftentimes a baby is cast in the mix, and it's just everyone gets dressed up and stands around in the form of the nativity, and it's an event. The 2 that I wrote on, so the key question is still the same thing, the same kind of concept we talked about with the nativity standing displays, which is it government sponsored? Does it have the markings of a government sponsored event? The 2 that I wrote to was a situation where the church was sort of sponsoring the living nativity, putting it together, but the 2 cities I wrote to were promoting it as part of their city holiday tree lighting or their city holiday celebration. They were promoting it, saying, please join us for a tree lighting and a live nativity display or a live nativity, event. And so our position is definitely that a city or government entity cannot host a live nativity as part of their holiday event, especially if it's one of the only or the prominent part of the celebration, or one of only a couple of features of the celebration. But it's a little bit different because it's a one-time event.
Yeah, and maybe this would be a good time to bring up FFRF's lawsuit against Concord Community Schools in Indiana, which is a school system that every year for 45 plus years has included a live nativity scene at their winter Christmas concert. And it's like a 20-minute, well, it was for 45 plus years, about a 20-minute production where students dressed up and as all the characters. I think they used a fake baby. And then they had a teacher voicing over actual Bible passages to tell the story of the birth of Jesus. So we sued over that after we wrote a letter to the school district, and they refused to end the practice. Finally, after the lawsuit, Concord Community Schools finally said, "Okay, we're gonna switch this up." And the reason why that is especially problematic is that it is in a public school setting, right? So this is the school district teaching students about the birth of Jesus and saying this is an important part of our annual holiday program. The rest of the program is perfectly fine. It's a bunch of musical numbers and performances by students where they get to decide on the content and with help from teachers. But this remained the same year after year, and it was always the school's decision to celebrate the birth of Jesus. So that's problematic and something that we took issue with.
And it adds another aspect to compare with static nativities, where you have a coercion aspect. So you have, especially in a public school setting, kids who are being coerced, if not forced, to participate in the nativity scene, not just to look at it, but to actually be there. And so less likely to see that in a city performance in a park, but I guess you never know, where they might have some sort of incentive, at least, where it's like, any kids who want to come and do this, the city's going to give them something. And so that would be another fact that, in a way, would make it actually worse than putting up just a static nativity that's just sitting there.
Right. Of course, like as Sam mentioned, public schools are different, and so there's just heightened establishment clause and constitutional issues when we're talking about something in a public school. So everything we're kind of talking about would be a little different if it popped up in a public school, even if when we see a nativity display or we hear of a nativity display in a public school on display, we complain, and we take the position that a school district has to take down and cannot display a nativity scene as part of holiday decorations, even in a public school, because public schools are different. Students have to be there. Everyone in a public school is a impressionable school-age child, and so that's a totally different context. You're not going to be seeing FFRF going to put up their own display in a public school. Because it would just be very unlikely that there would be a display in a public school that would pass constitutional muster. But that's kind of a whole another context. But yeah, great example of a live, living nativity where we've had to really push back hard, and it kind of raised some different issues. The next question I wanted to get at is Jake saying, how can I put up my own display to counter a nativity? And can I buy one of your Bill of Rights nativity displays? So first, how can someone put up their own display if they see a nativity in their city or town?
I think the most straightforward thing to do, if you see what appears to be a forum, where it's like like what we had in Sheldon, Connecticut, where there's a city park and there's a religious display there, and you reason correctly that this can't be the city putting this display on. They must be allowing an outside private group to bring it up, and I want to have my view represented as well. What I would recommend is just go to the city's website or go to City Hall and ask, can I have an application to put up my own display? And if that is what's going on, if you're correct, then they will help you through that process, and then you can contact FFRF. And we will, the way it'll usually work, part of the question was, can you buy the displays? Usually what we do, because they're pretty expensive, is FFRF will take the cost of the display and we'll ship it to you, so that your only commitment is to put it up, but it's not going to cost you anything. And also, if there are complications, if the city says, no, we don't want you to put it up, or if maybe you don't want to be the one to ask the city, that can we put up our own display, FFRF will do that for you. So you can just go to our website, fill out a state church complaint form saying there's this religious display. Can you talk to the city and figure out what's going on? So that's what I'd recommend.
Exactly. And we have displays. We have the banners that you saw. We have Bill of Rights nativities. We have several displays that go out to different activists all over the country. And we take care of the logistics of shipping and everything you need. We just need people on the ground who are really willing to coordinate the actual putting up of the display on your end. Attorneys in our legal department can talk with the city or figure out what the situation is first, and make sure that all the permitting, if there is permitting, is all copacetic. So get in touch with us via our website web form if you have a local display and you think it's a public forum and you want to find out more about putting up your own display. So let's see. Here we go. This is a good question. Samantha says, if my local city hall puts up a Christmas tree, can I put up a banner next to it?
I think the answer to that is it depends. There's a good chance that if your city is putting up a tree, that's government speech. So that could be if the city's buying the tree and putting it up, or hiring like a company to put up decorations on city property, that's government speech, and you can submit a records request to find out how that tree got to be there. If it's a forum, then yeah, you can put up a banner. If it's not a forum, if it's just the government doing their own thing, then maybe not. Right.
And yeah, Sam's point is well taken, which is usually something that would be a more secular, as courts would put it, holiday decoration, like a lighted tree. Well, pagan really, but that's a whole nother thing. That would sort of be a flag that's not likely to be a public forum. It's not, the city would sort of have little reason to not take on and endorse. And cities everywhere do, of course, if you just look around right now, you'll see cities everywhere do lighted displays. They do holiday decorations. So it'd be unlikely that just a tree would sort of signal a public forum. But sure, it's always worth asking.
Yeah, you can certainly ask. What you don't want to do, though, and I know we have had at least 1 or 2 members do this, is they see, the one I'm thinking of, it was inside City Hall. There were some displays that were probably compliant, but where the member wasn't happy about it because it included a nativity or something like that, and so they just took, I think, an FFRF bumper sticker and just put it up on the wall. So do not do that.
Don't do that. So this is kind of a related question, but someone asked, there's a nativity with a Christmas tree and a Santa in the courthouse downtown. The city says I can't put anything up next to it. Can you help me? And so what that's kind of getting at a situation that I sort of tried to explain earlier, which is the city saying you can't put anything up next to it probably means, what that says to me is the city saying, no, this is government speech, this is our government holiday decorations, this is not a public forum. And you're seeing a nativity scene there and thinking that doesn't seem like it's cool and it's government sponsored, but I think depending on the context, and you should definitely take photos and send them to us so that we can evaluate this case by case. But depending on the context, that might be a government sponsored display that courts would approve, given the Supreme Court case, Lynch v. Donnelly, which is old now and basically says that, well, it is possible for a nativity scene to be part of a government-sponsored holiday display and still not violate the Establishment Clause if it sort of is this part of this broader display and has these sort of secular elements. And what's being described in this question, a tree and a Santa and that type of thing, kind of gets at that end of the spectrum. So
one other thing, though, is just because, thanks to Lynch v. Donnelly, the government can do that, can put up a nativity scene as part of a larger holiday display. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's wise.
Right.
Right. So in that situation, we would still encourage our members to reach out to their local government and just say, hey, I'm a member of this community. The nativity scene speaks to a specific religion that I don't agree with. How about making the display more inclusive, right? I don't think anyone objects to reindeer and a Christmas tree as like just as celebrating just generally the season. But when you include exclusionary religious symbols, suddenly you're drawing lines and dividing the community. So
right.
It's always worth getting your voice out there.
Right, definitely. There's no harm in complaining, and especially just making it known that people live in this community who are not Christians and don't celebrate Christian elements of the season. And also, just because it's legal doesn't mean they have to do it. The other aspect of that is just because it's legal, or given that it's legal and it's government speech, they can include you know, and they have a broad display that includes various secular elements of the season, means they can include whatever they want, including your, you know, your viewpoint too. And so you can, if they're unwilling to take down a nativity, you can say, hey, how about a little more balance? There's Jewish people in your community, there's atheists in your community, there's pagans in your community. Here's some things that other groups would like to see as part of the government-sponsored display. Okay, so we have another emailed, or we have an emailed question here from Marissa Allen, and it says, relates to vandalism of our displays. Can't you just put up a hunting camera next to your displays? That way, if they get vandalized, you can catch the person who did it.
Oh, all right. I can field this one. Actually, we have gotten this question a few times since 2015 when we started the Resurrection Pledge campaign. I mean, there are a couple reasons why we don't do this, but I think the most compelling one is actually that having cameras directed at a display isn't necessarily going to stop anything or help us catch who did it. We have actually had one of our displays, I think it was an Easter display, stolen from the Wisconsin Capitol, where there are many security cameras. Right. And we got the footage of the person stealing our display. That didn't help us get it back. Right. And so yeah, it's nice. It's a nice idea that maybe if we put up cameras, that would help us get justice. But it's an expense that we don't think would be well worth it.
Right.
But if you are going to put up your own display and you have especially like a high-resolution camera you want to fix on the display, more power to you. You know, maybe you can help us actually catch one of the people who vandalizes our displays.
Right. Yes. I think we do a decent job of kind of drawing attention to the vandalism and the unfairness and, you know, the poor treatment of our displays in these communities. On the whole, I think it puts us in a positive light, puts vandals in those communities in a really negative light, and generates support for our Resurrection Pledge, and I think overall kind of proves our point, which is that religion on government property is incredibly divisive. It's courting controversy. It brings out ugliness. It's nothing to do with what this whole season is supposed to be about. It brings shame on these, you know, on these communities where our displays get vandalized, just, you know, for the ideas that they express. And so, I think, you know, overall we do a good job, and we kind of come out proving our point and ultimately being no worse for the wear.
Yeah, a lot of these communities actually do sort of turn back and look inward and sort of reflect on, well, this has become divisive. This has become a circus in some cases, right? Yeah. Like Franklin County opened up their city hall area to a bunch of displays and didn't like the result, didn't like that our display was vandalized, which doesn't reflect well in the community, and didn't like sort of the circus that it created.
Yeah,
so.
And I think a lot of people who normally don't like our viewpoint will be sympathetic and really understand how marginalized we are when this happens. Just like FFRF would condemn any vandalism of a church, a lot of times you get churches coming to our defense when our stuff gets vandalized too.
Most people, whatever their religion, are not criminals and are not vandals, and are tolerant of other people. And yeah, it kind of brings those people in and makes them a little bit more understanding of our perspective. And like Sam said, having these public forums open on public property and having controversial viewpoints like ours in the mix does create oftentimes a circus because of the community response and vandalism and other things. And sometimes that is enough to convince a community that, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have a public forum open for, you know, anyone and everyone to put their ideas on government property. Maybe this isn't the place for this. And that results in some cities and towns closing their forums altogether, you know, and keeping things tame. And so I'm just gonna check for any last questions here. We've got, here we go. Sorry, just a second here. Okay, this is a little wordy, so here I go. J. Duncan Cook says, this is the Satanic Temple, San Jose. When our goat head tree topper was stolen, we filed a police report and they asked if we wanted to classify it as a hate crime. We chose not to because there was no way to know if someone just thought it was cool and wanted it, and we didn't want to dilute the power of such a claim, i.e. dilute what it means to have a hate crime. When your displays are vandalized, what is your policy on that issue? That's a great question.
Well, I do know that our policy is we do report it to the police, right? Any theft or vandalism of our display is going to get reported, and local law enforcement has been helpful in the past. They will ramp up monitoring of the area, which can be helpful when we put up a new display, when we resurrect our display.
Right.
I don't believe that we report these as hate crimes. I think that that's something that if the evidence bore that out, right. If we did catch the vandal, that would be something that we would look into. There's a difference between doing something with hate and a hate crime, right? So clearly anyone who's vandalizing our displays hates our message and is doing something out of frustration.
Right.
But that's a little bit different than a hate crime.
Right. Well, I think that's the last question, guys. And so, yep. Okay, great. So with that, I will say thank you so much for joining us on FFRF's Ask an Atheist this week. And just a heads up that next week we will be live at a special time. It will be 1 p.m. Central next week, and it'll be during our annual winter solstice party and concert featuring Dan Barker on the piano and Susan Hofer singing, and that'll be here at FFRF's headquarters, Free Thought Hall. So join us next week at 1 p.m. Central, and we'll resume our normal time and our normal Ask an Atheist programming the following week on December 27th. Thank you so much for joining us.